Okay, so what I want to show you guys right now is basically I've had a few questions regarding the different assignments that we've got. People have been confused because they're not sure what to do or how to approach it or how to tackle it. And as I said in my announcement, I put out an announcement this afternoon and I basically gave you some information about it and what I had noticed is a lot of people were using Canvas through their phone, which was creating issues because they weren't seeing all the information. So basically I wanted to point some things out to you guys. Hopefully this will help a few of you out. Okay, and so if you go to assignments, right, this will show you everything that's due for the class and what's coming up. Now, it doesn't have everything for the whole class because I'm kind of, doing this as I go. I'm putting stuff up there. But by the end of, a class, by that Friday, everything should be up there for the next class. Now, I do have, some of the long-term assignments like the research paper up here. Okay, things like that. All right. And so one thing I wanted to point out to you guys that usually when you first come in here, it's going to show you what's due by date. Okay, so this is all your assignments. These are past assignments, and then it'll show you upcoming assignments, and it organizes them by date. If I go over here and I click show by type, it organizes by the type of the assignments, okay, and basically how much of your grade that is worth, like 20% here, 10% here, 15%, so on and so forth. Okay, so you can see how things are organized or grouped in this class. So you have research paper, participation points. These are all the homework assignments. Now I know it could be a little confusing because Canvas kind of categorizes these as quizzes. The only thing, if it says quiz, that just means you do it online through Canvas. It's not necessarily a quiz. If it says homework, it's homework, okay, even though it might say quiz. All right. Then over here you have the quizzes that are due. These are the quizzes that you guys did Friday. Okay, and your presentation and your exams. Okay, so that's how everything's grouped. So now if I go back to assignments, okay, if I click on an assignment, it's basically going to tell you what to do and how to do it. Okay, so let's look at homework number 1, terminology. Okay, so this one, it's locked because it's past due. Okay, and I'm in student view right now, so I see exactly what you guys see. Okay, so there's nothing here to really look at, so that was a bad example, so let me go back. Okay, so let's take a look at this week's assignment. Okay, so the first thing that's due here is the China Syndrome timeline. Okay, so if I click on that, all right, it says, as you watch the movie, The China Syndrome, take notes and create a timeline of events to help you write your paper. The whole point behind this assignment is to help you write your paper. Okay, and so then there's a link here where you guys could download and watch the movie. And then I also have an example of what a timeline looks at like in Microsoft Word. Okay, and then probably the most important thing with each, not every assignment has these, but assignments where I think there might be a lot of questions, I put a grading rubric down here. This shows you exactly how I'm going to grade you. Okay, so this assignment is worth 5 points. In order to get 5 points, your timeline needs to clearly outline all the major events, include details such as names and location, contain notes that correlate ethical principles and human factors from the assigned reading to those events, and demonstrate a clear understanding of those principles. Okay, and so let's say you just put all the basically you just put all the events of the movie, and you didn't have any kind of notes saying, hey, this human factor might apply here or this ethical principle might apply here, then you wouldn't get 5 points. Okay, at best you'd probably get between 3 and 1 point for that assignment because you didn't follow all those instructions here. So the whole purpose of this assignment, and really everything we do in this class, the whole purpose of this of what we do in this class is to look at different events and look at different scenarios and mishaps and things like that, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to analyze them and try to figure out what human factors came into play, what ethical principles came into play. Okay, so we're doing a little bit of analysis because this is a 4-unit class, And, it's because it's 4 units, there's a higher expectation of performance for what we're going to do. Okay, so the timeline, and don't let all this scare you. Okay, the timeline is pretty simple. Okay, just outline the events, maybe make a note here, human factor, this applied to that, this ethical principle applied to that. Okay, so now if I go back and I look at the paper, the China Syndrome paper, and click on that. Okay, same thing. It's got instructions. Write a 2 to 3 page paper summarizing the movie, The China Syndrome. Summarize the events that took place in the movie. Now, that's only one part of this paper. If you just write a movie and you just summarize, you're basically writing a book review or a movie review, you're not going to do very well on this paper, okay? Because the purpose of this class isn't to watch movies and write reviews. It's to look at these situations and try to apply these concepts that we learned on day one, the different ethical concepts and the different human factor concepts, okay? So then you're going to explain why these events took place. Use examples in your reading, such as human factors and ethical principles discussed in chapter 1. What are some examples of normalization of deviance? Now, you remember in class 1, I talked about this, and I said you guys might want to write this term down, okay? And then it also says paper must be APA formatted. I tell you how I want the font, and it says cite your sources, okay? And so then if you scroll down, here's the grading rubric, okay? These are different categories. How well did you integrate knowledge? How well did you stay on focus with your topic? Was your paper structured appropriately? Was it cohesive? Did you make clear arguments? Could I understand where you were going with it? Was your spelling and grammar good? Was your APA format good? Did you properly cite your sources? Okay, so these are all the basic areas where I'm going to grade, and these are the different points you could get, okay? And for example, if you wanted to get, 5 points in integrative knowledge, the paper has to demonstrate that you fully understood and applied concepts that you learned in the course. Okay, so basically that's that. Now, I could tell you what we're leading up to on these papers is your research paper. Your research paper is the big ticket item for you. All right. And I know that a lot of you guys do not have experience writing research papers. And so all these assignments are designed to get you to be better at writing research papers. And so for the first few assignments, I'm going to basically be a little more lenient. And as we go on, I'm going to get a little more harder in my grading, but I'm always going to provide you feedback and show you or tell you how you could do better. Okay, so don't lose a lot of sleep over this paper, but do make your best attempt. All right, so now where are you going to get all this information? Okay, where are you going to find examples of human factors and ethical principles, right? Well, from your reading, okay? So you have your textbook, and most of this information we covered, the big ticket items we covered on day one. Okay, you were supposed to read human factors this week. Okay, so there's the FAA book on human factors that lists all the different human factors and just different information. We're going to talk about a lot of this next week as well. Okay, but here's one source of information that you have available to you. All right, and then also you have your textbooks. All right, and you also have the slides that I've made available to you for each class. I post them up as we go. I don't post them before the class, okay, because I don't want people thinking they could skip class and just use my slides. And I also take the pictures off just because a lot of these pictures I don't own. I just find them online, I use them. And so there's some copyright issues there. So I strip the pictures when I post my slides, but all the information's here, right? So let's look through this. These, what we talked about on day one, these ethical principles from the book are basically what we're looking at. Okay, so relativism. There is no universally moral principles, okay? These principles are relative to each culture, okay? Does that apply to the movie? Maybe it does, okay? I don't know. In my opinion, maybe not, but you may think it does, and so you might talk about this and how it applied to the movie. What about egoism, okay? Is this a concept that might apply to some of the characters of the movie? I think it would. Okay, so I think this would be a good example. of maybe talking about how some of the characters felt like they were doing what was good for themselves. That was their primary moral value, and they didn't really consider the effect that it would have on other people. Okay, so I'm not going to go into all these, but I think you could see what I'm getting at. All right, and so again, another source that you have to draw from is the human factors. Now, we touched on these on day one, and we'll get into a lot more detail as we move on in this class. Okay, but let's look at the 12 human factors, and let's think about some of these that might have taken place in this movie. So can we say that people were complacent in that movie? I would say, yeah, complacency is a huge human factor that resulted in some of the human error. What about lack of knowledge? Most definitely, okay? As you watch the movie, you start to understand, like, not everybody really knows, how the system operates. They don't really have a good understanding of what's going on, okay? What about lack of teamwork? Well, I would say at the very beginning, they worked effectively as a team, but as they started having problems, the teamwork started breaking down, and that led to more problems, okay? Pressure, most definitely lack of assertiveness, okay? So I think you guys get where I'm going with this, okay? So if you have any more questions, let me know, and hopefully we got you pointed in the right direction.